What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Hangover. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me, as always, Shannon White. Shannon, how you doing? How was your weekend, my man?
We had a great weekend, and looking forward to this upcoming weekend. It's my son's birthday,
Happy
and
birthday.
you know how it is when you have a birthday and you're a man. It's birthday week, so we have to have a week to get all the celebration in and everything. So we're already started.
There you go. There you go. Well, happy birthday to him
Yeah,
and many blessings. Uh, it's going to be an exciting week for a lot of us this week,
yep.
especially those that are fans of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the next couple of days, the Steelers will be reporting to training camp in Latrobe. It is going to be the dorm days of summer, or the end of summer, that is, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. First and foremost, what do you think about the Steelers holding that type of training camp setting? I'm not sure there's very many other teams in the NFL that have a setting where they go and stay at a specific place together, such as a college dorm, play and for an extended period. What are your thoughts about the Steelers still doing that?
Yeah, I guess I can see the benefit of it, and that you are truly together with your teammates 24/7. There's no outside distractions. It's just a time to build camaraderie. And in the modern day and age, with free agency like it is, and the team, there's some turnover every year. And this kind of allows guys to get to know each other and to have that family like environment. Because when you're talking about millionaires, even the guys at the bottom of the roster, so you want to build that uh, camaraderie, and I think that's something that the Steelers are really focused on at Latrobe, and I think it's something that Mike Tomlin is definitely aware of, and he wants that, he desires that.
Yeah, I think it's like you mentioned, it's great for the camaraderie, great for the team building. And I think it does say something about tradition, and about how the Steelers carry themselves as an organization, and being an organization enriched with a lot of tradition. I mean, this is the only team that's had, at least amount of head coaches in the time frame that they've been, in the last 50 years or so now. And so, with that being said, um, I like it. I like the fact that they do it. And you're absolutely right. There's some folks probably on the team that make a lot of money that don't appreciate,
Yeah,
the bunk beds and the
yeah,
closeness sometimes. Maybe a lack of central air in certain places of the building, but it's an experience,
yes,
and I think it does bring the team together. I've been out there. Have you been out to training camp before?
yes.
When was the
And
last
it's
time you guys went out there?
oh gosh, I'm trying to think. The last time I went was probably 2014. I
Oh,
haven't been
nice.
for a while,
Got you. Got you.
and I keep wanting to go back. I was going to go last year, and
Uh-huh.
it would come down to financial decision, and I was like, I'd rather we went on our family vacation than me get to go to the. I was going to come up and go to camp and go to a Pirates game, and I
Oh,
ended up
nice.
saying, "Well, we really can't afford. We're just going to go on family vacation."
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I went 2 years ago, and Kenny Pickett was a rookie. I wanted to see, the battle of the QBs, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. I wanted to see up and personal, and it was exciting, man. I'll tell you what, for those that are wanting to go out there, there's an amazing spot under the trees that you're really going to want to
Mhm.
hit, because if you're out there, in the bleachers, it looks great, in the early mornings, but one around noon, 1 o'clock,
Mhm.
that's when it's not so
You're a
great
baked
anymore.
potato. You're
Bring the
like a baked
sunscreen.
potato. Yes, it's hot.
It's very hot, very
You'll
warm,
appreciate that shade.
and surprisingly humid. I mean, maybe not. I mean, for me out here in Texas, some parts are humid, but I wasn't expecting it to be as humid. It's probably more humid in that area than I was
Yeah,
was
yeah.
expecting. So have fun. Bring a portable fan. That's what I did, and an umbrella if you're going to be in the stands, or a towel if you're going to be under the trees, because either way, it's a lot of fun. You'll enjoy it. If you want autographs, there's like I guess like a sidewalk that they
Yeah.
allow some of the players to go, or some of the fans to go up to. Players who come across there. You'll see it. It's at the far end of the fields, and you can get there and you can get your autographs and stuff. It's a really cool experience. A lot of family fun events as well
Yep.
outside of the area. They have like a it's like a draft, not a draft party, but just like a party going on, just very Steelers themed, more like a tailgating thing out there as well. So yeah, go check it out. I think it's free for everything except for Friday Night Lights. Last time I went, it was $5 a person. Um, check the weather. Check the weather. Make sure it ain't raining.
Yeah, I think now you get. I think it started last year that you get tickets, but they're free.
Mhm.
But that way, I think they keep an actual head count, and because you don't want to have it overcrowded. So I think that's why they're doing that. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, for the training camp, but for the Friday Night Lights,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
it was a traditional ticket,
yeah.
like a raffle ticket. It was
Mhm.
crazy. But yeah, and unfortunately for me, when I went out there, the team got there, they got off the bus, and then the rain came down,
Yeah,
and
that's when
then
they didn't have it, right?
yeah, they didn't
Yeah,
not
yeah,
having it. I was highly disappointed because I
yeah,
flew all the
yeah.
way over there. But I got to go and see him the day before. I got to hang out, with a couple of the players there who hung around with some of the fans afterwards.
Mhm.
I got to meet Matt Canada for whatever that's worth.
Oh, you got to
Um,
meet Matt Canada,
I got to meet Matt Canada. He
and
was
that was before you
walking.
knew to smack him.
Right. This is when Kenny Pickett started. So I was hoping for
Yeah,
a new offense. New
yeah.
offense. Yeah. He came up to me. I was like, I was the I was the only person, I guess, I kind of looked at his way, and I was like, "Hey," and he just kind of came up to me. I was like, "How you doing?" And I shook his hand. I was like, "Hope you do good this year." Maybe I jinxed him. Who knows?
No, it wasn't your fault. He shouldn't have been there in the first place.
No, I agree. I agree. Well, since the last time we talked, the Steelers have had a little bit of news. They have signed former Steelers, former Bills, Tyler Mitakevich, to a 1-year deal. What do you make of that move?
Um, I've heard different reasonings behind it. People talk about it might signal that Cole Holcomb's not ready, which I've said before. I think he starts the year on the pup list. That was such a severe injury, and it happened in the middle of the season. I don't see how he could possibly be ready. But the difference is, Dirty Red, he's not somebody you can count on to play even a handful of snaps in your base defense. He is a special team specialist. I would rather they had went and tried to get Quan Alexander if he's close to being ready, in my opinion, because you've already got Killebrew as your special teams captain, and he's basically a specialist. He can offer you a little bit of help at strong safety, but not a lot. You don't want him out there very often, or there's a problem. And so having Dirty Red, I'm just like, I don't even know if he's going to make the team, but he might make the team at the bottom of the roster and maybe be inactive, some weeks, see how the special teams do. And then, if you need somebody to come in and give you a snap or two to rest one of the starters, at some point in the game. But I really don't want him on the field on defense. So I'm not real excited about signing him. Is it something to try to motivate Mark Robertson? Because it's now or never.
Mhm.
Mark Robertson is much more talented than Dirty Red. I think he has much more potential, but he's never showed it above the shoulders. And that's where we have to see it. To be the size he is and the type player he is, he has to be ultra aggressive. He has to be instinctual. He has to flow to the ball aggressively. He can't hesitate because, he doesn't have 4.4 speed. And he has to play all out, top speed at all times. And we see he's a little hesitant. He don't trust his eyes. So I'm hoping he's put the work in, especially on, studying and knowing the playbook and knowing his responsibilities. And because if not, I think that he'll get knocked off the roster.
Yeah, I do think he's going to be at the bottom end of the depth chart when it comes to the inside linebacker position. I do think this was possibly a move for the special teams, especially the new rule in the kickoff, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Um, but you know, come preseason, who's getting on the defensive field first? Dirty Red or Mark Robinson?
Well, like I said, I don't want to see uh Matavich out there
Yeah.
on defense. We just know he's got. I mean, Spillane was limited, and
Hmm.
Spillane is a superb athlete compared to Dirty Red. And Dirty Red is he's kind of like they call him Charlie Hustle. I mean, he does everything. Flows to the ball on special teams. He knows his assignments. He's a professional, but
Hmm.
on defense, he is a huge liability. And I do not want to see him out there on defense. So I'm hoping that it'll light a fire under Mark Robertson, like in the uh, movie Revenge of the Nerds, where they put the liquid heat in their jock straps. Maybe this
Yeah.
will light a fire under Mark Robertson and get him fired up and ready to go out and hit somebody.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope he does well. I mean, at the end of the day, I hope both of them do well. That would be a great problem to have.
Mhm.
Um, moving on, there's been a little bit of talk of some possible hold-ins that may occur. One being Cam Hayward, another one being Najee Harris, Pat Farmouth. Do you see anybody holding in / holding out, or do you think that even though those guys are going into their last year, that they're still going to participate in training camp?
I think that all of them know the Steelers don't like that. I mean, I even think that they, because you knew they were going to sign TJ Watt. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And
Mhm.
Watt was fully on board. He showed up every day. Even if he wasn't doing everything, he
Mhm.
showed up every day and he always said the right things. He didn't air his dirty laundry to the media. And the Steelers always said all along, we're signing him. It's just we got to get this worked out and that worked out. And um, so that worked. Now the Devon Deontay Johnson one, that was a little bit different, but it worked out. He did get a contract. But if anybody does this year, I think it'd be Cam Hayward because I think he feels like he's in a good place with the organization that he could kind of do like TJ did. I think the Steelers want him to play. They don't want to try to keep his money from him this year. People say, well, if they restructure him or give him an extension or whatever, you can move some of that money this year, which I think is $22 million.
Mhm.
But the Steelers have already said they're paying him his 22 this year. They just don't want it. They can't agree on the extension part. And I would rather they let him play out this year, see what he's got left in the tank, and then try to work out a contract after the season. But as we know, Hayward don't want to do that. So that could be a sticking point.
Yeah, that definitely could be. Um, I think at the end of the day that Cam Hayward, if he chooses to continue his career, it's going to end up being with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't see him in any other uniform. I don't see
I
the
hope
Steelers.
not.
No, I agree, and I don't think when it comes to players and paying players, the Steelers are pretty good about playing players their worth for the most part. Maybe sometimes they're a little bit, maybe underneath, slightly below what they're worth. But at the end of the day, they've all got their money. I mean, that was one of the things that was talked about when Le'Veon Bell was holding out. They were like, you know, even though it's not guaranteed, as long as you're performing, you're going to get your money. You're going to be able to get what you want. And I think that you're absolutely right. If they don't show up, period, then yeah,
Mhm.
that's not going to be a good deal. If they show up and are holding in, maybe participating in certain things and not on others, it's probably a smart move. One, and two, when it comes to like preseason games, I'm not too concerned about Pat Freiermuth and Najee Harris missing preseason games.
Yeah.
Um, these guys have been with the team for a while now. I understand this is a new offense, and maybe from that perspective, you kind of want them to get accustomed to it. But at the end of the day, these guys are professionals. We know what we can expect out of these guys, and um, you're probably not going to want to see too much of them, anyways, just for injury, avoidance reasoning. So as long
You
as they
know,
show up, I think they're going to be okay. I expect Pat Fryermuth and Hayward to be done before the start of the season.
In my opinion, it would shock me greatly if Harris or Fryermuth held out.
Mhm.
I don't think that one. I don't think they're that type player, individual, and I think they know the Steelers knowing well enough that that's not going to aid them in trying to get a contract from the Roonies or the Steelers. You brought up a great point, Le'Veon Bell. There was a lot of discussion. We was with the former employer at that time, and we talked a lot. And I wrote articles about it because I wasn't even podcasting back then.
Mm-hmm.
About he was so short sighted. His mother twice told him sign the contract, dummy, and he wouldn't do it. And listen, if you are an all time Steeler great, you got opportunities to make money for the rest of your life. Rocky Blyer still makes money. Jack Labor could, but he's just out in the boonies. He don't want nobody bothering him. But what I'm saying is, there's always autograph signings and appearance fees and giving making be a speaker and get paid for that. There's so much, it's so many opportunities. And how much money is Le'Veon Bell making now from his football career? I bet you it ain't much. Because when he left, now the Steelers fans look at him different. If he'd have played 3 more years and put up the numbers he was putting up, he'd be Hall of Fame consideration. And he would be considered one of the greatest Steelers of all time. And he would have made money the rest of his career just off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, he lost his ever-loving mind. And people do it, man. It's like I don't know if you're watching any of the Hard Knocks right now, but they were talking about, Barkley left the Giants and he went to the Eagles. And they were talking, they said, well, he could be in the Ring of Honor if he plays another year or two. Is he going to give that up for an extra $1 million a year, let's say?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's what it comes down to a lot of times, just $1 million here, $1 million there. And I don't see it because I'm thinking long term. You want a Bobby Bonilla contract where you sign. I remember Reggie Jackson had a contract that he got like a penny for every ticket sold for a certain period of time. It equaled to be millions of dollars after he retired. Now I'm sure people, when they seen it, they didn't think anything of it. But see, he was smart enough to realize, and I'm sure his agent probably helped, but he made a lot of money after he retired just from being a smart businessman. So beyond your legacy, which I think every player should put above, just a little bit of money here and there. And I'm talking about for them, that's a little bit of money. But I'm just saying that if you think long term and you think legacy sells. Now he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Nobody is ever going to remember him with the Jets and the Ravens. He's not going to get anything off of that. And he just basically, cut his nose off to spite his face. So I hope that these guys can look at it big picture. Cam Hayward's going to be in that situation. If he could go down as one of the all-time best Steelers players, especially defensive lineman ever, or, if he never wins the Super Bowl and he leaves on bad terms, he might just totally be forgotten.
Yeah, well, I don't know about Cam being totally forgotten if he were to leave on such bad terms.
Well, he'd be Walter Payton Man of the Year. I mean, you can't take that away. I mean,
right. Yeah, that, and I think Cam, his tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers was longer. He was a captain longer. He was or he is still a huge force to be reckoned with. Even at his age last year, he got injured. Even through all that, and even through what he was playing with, when he wasn't there, teams were running up the middle like crazy. As soon as he got back, even at 50% or 60% of Cam, it turned things around. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do this year if he's healthy enough. And I hope he earns a huge contract, because if he does, that means he played very well for us this year.
Yeah, we need that. Yes.
Exactly. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be back after a few words from our sponsors. And welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the Hangover. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Shannon. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, steelcurtainnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Make sure you go check it out. There's tons of coverage on the Pittsburgh Steelers, daily breaking news, and stay up to date. You don't want to miss it. And while you're there, go check out the audio-only podcast where you'll catch my podcast called State of the Steelers, which airs out on Fridays around noon. But make sure you go check out this past week's. It was a good one. So, training camp starts in a couple of days. I've seen a couple of headlines and articles that maybe align differently from what you think is going to happen this offseason or this training camp. And that is, there's a lot of skeptics coming out on Russell Wilson. A lot of people are saying he's going to be cut before week 1 because Justin Fields is going to take his job. Some folks are saying that he's going to lose his job and still be on the team, but behind Justin Fields. What do you think is going to happen this training camp with Russell Wilson? What do you expect to see?
Well, I've went through a full range of emotions on this subject. When they first started talking, Kevin Tate, one of my podcast partners on Pump Your Brakes, he was all for signing Russell Wilson. Where me and Big G were really wanting to go after Justin Fields. And so I'd heard things about Russell Wilson not getting along with some of the players. He'd had a public disagreement it's on and off the field with a couple of the receivers in Seattle before he left. And then he just didn't seem like he was fully committed in Denver. So I was against signing him. And then they got him for what they did. You know, then you couldn't pass that up. I mean, you're getting an upgrade at quarterback for, veteran minimum. So I was like, well, I understand them, Then they got Justin Fields too. That made it interesting because that's the type of talent, superstar talent at a young age, 25 years old. But, he needs a lot of development because he didn't get it with the Bears. But now, after watching Russell Wilson this offseason and watching him interact with his teammates in Pittsburgh, watching his leadership and how carefree and you see that swagger back, that confidence back. I'm thinking that he needed Mike Tomlin because to me, Mike Tomlin is a player's coach like Pete Carroll is a player's coach. And the relationship between head coach and quarterback is so crucial. And even though Pete Carroll is, really more, I don't know if you call him an offensive coach, but more offensive minded than Tomlin is. But I think that Tomlin is going to support him. And that's what Tomlin's been wanting. He's wanting that veteran that he can have that type of relationship with, that he can trust to make the right read and the right play and protect the football. I think that Tomlin's very comfortable because to me, that's who Tomlin wanted all along this offseason. He wanted Russell Wilson. So I've read the same things you've read, and a lot of people and former players, Plexico Burris, is not excited about the Steelers quarterback room at all. I am, because I think Russell Wilson is going to have a career revival under Mike Tomlin in this offense because he's going to not be asked to do hero ball or MVP level play. He's going to be asked to be a game manager, hit the play when the opportunity's there, complete the, he loves to throw deep. He's got some candidates there. He likes I think the play action, if the running game of the offensive line is improved like I think it will be, I think that it's going to really help Russ. And we know how Russ is. When he's cooking, that's where the saying comes from. When he's cooking and he's confident, he's just flowing. It's just like a natural, he's playing instinctual. And I think he's going to really be able to do that this year in Pittsburgh. So I've read the same things you have. I don't agree with it. And I'm really hoping that he is that successful because, one, it'll be good for the Steelers, but it's also going to be great for Justin Fields because Fields needs time to develop, time to have that pressure off of him, and just to be able to see the field from standing on the sidelines and watching somebody who's been proven for quite a few years like Russell Wilson, how he goes about his business. When you think about it, Justin Fields was considered asked to be the savior as soon as he got to Chicago. And who did he have for an example? I guess, he had Andy Dalton, Nick Foles. I love Nick Foles, but I mean, he had a great Super Bowl, but neither one of these guys is what you're going to compare him to Russell Wilson. So I think that mentorship, especially this season, would be great if Wilson can be successful and be an example to Fields.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the perfect storm, right?
Yep.
Um, I too think that Russ is going to have probably a better year than what most people are thinking. I think what a lot of people are not taking into consideration is the talent around Russell Wilson. And I think that when you look back at last year, and we were able to see what Mason Rudolph was able to do with the talented team that they had last year, and that was with, in my opinion, probably a lesser value at left tackle and center than what Russ is going to be able to appreciate this year.
Definitely, yeah.
And so, and maybe even some upgrades at the wide receiver position, because
And offensive coordinator, and
that's a
wide
big one.
receiver coach,
Yeah,
and quarterback coach.
yeah,
I mean, let's just be honest and look at the big picture. I mean, what Rudolph did was incredible, but Wilson's in a much better spot.
yeah. Wilson's in a better spot, and I think that Wilson being put, even if it was in the same spot that Mason was in last year, I would expect Russell Wilson to outperform Mason in those situations. Mason Rudolph, he took what the other teams, gave him. There was a few, a few throws here or there that were, in a window, so to speak. And I thought he played fairly well. I thought he should have been given an opportunity to compete this year. But when it comes down to like, looking at both players play, Russell Wilson is a tier above where Mason Rudolph is. So I would expect him to play better than what Mason showed up. And I would expect it to even be more impressive because of the offensive line improvements and the wide receiver improvements and the offensive coordinator improvements. So I'm expecting him to play fairly well this season. I know a lot of people are kind of skeptical because of what he did last year with, Denver or the year before. And, I don't think he was in the right place either way. With Hackett, it wasn't supposed to be Russ. It was supposed to be Aaron Rodgers. That's the whole reason they got Nathaniel Hackett there.
Yep.
And then they got Sean Payton. He didn't want nothing to do with Russ.
He
So
wanted Russ to be Drew Brees.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and he didn't show it's like Bill Belichick. Will he ever be Bill Belichick again? Or was it Tom Brady?
Right.
See, I think that, we have to understand that Belichick's a defensive minded coach. He thought he could put a guy out there, anybody, and duplicate what Brady did. And obviously that ain't going to happen. And it was terrible. I mean, he was flipping quarterbacks left and right. And, we was talking about even Russ with Denver. Was it 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions or
I
something?
believe so.
And he beat the Chiefs and he pulled off some big victories. He had some success in Denver, even with a coach that couldn't stand him and set him the last 2 or 3 games. So, because of insurance and they didn't want him to get hurt and still have to pay him, whatever. But,
Yeah.
that was not ideal circumstances at all. And he was way more successful than any quarterback in Pittsburgh since being in 2018. So,
I think that Russ got 26 touchdowns last season. He didn't play the full season. I think he's going to have a much better opportunity with better weapons around him this season. I think 30 should be a good number or a good bar to see. I think if he hits 30 touchdowns, it's going to be a good year.
definitely.
If he can keep those interceptions under 2 digits, especially, even if he gets one more at 9 or even at 10, I think,
I'll take
that's
30
not
and
bad.
10.
Yeah,
I'll take 30 and 10. Yeah, I'll take it right now. What did the Steelers quarterbacks 13 touchdowns last year?
Yeah.
13? Yeah. Holy crap. Ben had 2 games and almost had that many.
I know.
That's ridiculous.
No, I agree. And so, and especially with this running game, I think that's really going to carry him. He's not going to have to be a guy that carries the team. He's not going to have to be that guy, at this stage of his career. What he needs to do is just kind of manage the game, Make sure it's not 3-and-out city like it was last year from multiple games in a row, and I think the rest will take care of itself. Um, but, I do think that because a lot of people have such a low standard for him or think such little for him, he might end up impressing a lot of people thinking that, maybe they were wrong about him.
I've seen today. I was out most of the day, but uh, we were somewhere and there was a TV on, and something about Harbaugh thinking that Lamar Jackson could possibly be the best quarterback in NFL history, and about spit my drink out. I'm like, I mean, there's delusional, and then there's that statement. I mean, here's what I don't understand. So people are all against thinking that Steeler fans are crazy to think that Russell Wilson at 35 could have a resurgence in with the Steelers with a good head coach and a solid system that fits his skill set, and that he could have a bounce back season. Now that's crazy. That's crazy talk. All of us that think this is absolutely insane. Well, where's the people talking about Harbaugh saying that about Lamar Jackson? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, that is one of the craziest statements I ever heard. I mean, based on what we've seen, how many years has he played? 5 or 6?
Mhm.
I mean, he's an electric player. He can do some great things. But saying he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time is insane.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just if there's certain amount of Steeler hate out there, it's Steeler bias. They're we know this, and they can say things about Cleveland. Oh, this is Cleveland's year. They say it every year. Or Joe Burrow, he's been cleared 100% to practice and everything, and or Lamar Jackson could be the greatest quarterback ever. I just don't see it, guys. I don't see the disrespect for the Steelers. I don't get it.
I don't either. I don't either. We have a super chat coming in from Last King of Scotland, 4.99. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, thank
Um,
you.
what's the difference between Fields and Zach Wilson? Both struggled, but Wilson won more. Now I hear Fields was in a bad situation and Wilson is a bust. For me, I think it has to do with a lot about attitude. I think there was even a part in last year's season where there was rumors that he didn't want to dress, he didn't want to play or back up or do any of those things towards the end of the season. And uh, it didn't sound like he was much of a team player from what I heard. What do you think is the difference between Zach Wilson and Fields?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of differences. I don't know. Does Justin Fields like to hook up with his mom's friends? I mean, I'm just thinking, calling off some things,
Yeah.
But no, to me, Justin Fields is a far superior athlete. Uh, he can do so many more things on the field. Um, I've not been impressed by Zach Wilson. I wasn't impressed. I thought he was, he was like the golden boy coming out of BYU, but I didn't see all the NFL qualities for him to get drafted where he got drafted.
Mhm.
Now, I seen it with Justin Fields. It's unmistakable, the athleticism. Now, you knew when he come out because he'd only had limited starts in college. You knew coming out he had to be developed. He had to be developed. He had to go through progressions. He had to learn to throw in tighter throwing lanes and windows in the pros. He had to learn to anticipate. I talked about it last year. Watch Geno Smith with Seattle when they played Dallas last year. Just go back and watch it and watch throws he made where he anticipated where the receiver was going to be, and he threw it like a couple of seconds to a spot, but when the guy was nowhere near that spot, but they knew where he was going to throw it, and he led them, and he threw them open, is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
That anticipation is something that Geno Smith, because I watched him every game at WVU, he did not have that at WVU, but he developed that in the pros. That's something that all really top line quarterbacks have, and they eventually develop. Justin Fields has never had that opportunity. Like last year, Justin Fields coming off 1,000-yard rushing season. And last year, going into the season, they said, we don't want you to run so much. We want you to become more of a pocket passer. So you're taking a guy who's always his biggest weapon is his throwing arm. He's got a great arm and his legs. And you're taking them away from him. You're saying stay in the pocket a little bit longer, a little bit longer. You can't limit a guy to where he's taking the snap and he's thinking in his head, not just reading the defense and all that. He's thinking, okay, I got to stay in the pocket. I got to stay in the pocket. You see what I'm saying? You overload a guy and you can have the paralysis of overanalysis. As I always say, if you give a middle linebacker the responsibility of the green dot and he has to think not about his own responsibility, but also his teammates, some guys can't handle it and they shut down. Well, telling a quarterback, we don't want you to do this, or limit them, or be careful that your ball securities, don't turn the ball over. With different quarterbacks, it's different things. But he never was in a good situation in Chicago. And with Zach Wilson, let's be honest, he come in with the Jets. He thinks, I'm just going to be sitting on the bench all year. I'm going to, be able to look at all the Cougars up in the stands and maybe play some games on the sidelines over there and act like he's looking at the tablet and let Aaron Rodgers run everything. Well, what? The first drive of the year, Aaron Rodgers is out. Hey, guess what? It's your turn. And he didn't have the maturity, in my opinion. He wasn't ready.
Mm.
So I think they both got some things in common, but I think with Justin Fields, it's not a maturity issue. He just hasn't been developed. He hasn't been in the right situation. And I think now he will be. Zach Wilson, it remains to be seen if he'll ever become anything.
Yeah, I agree. And when it comes to Zach Wilson, I mean, for others saying that he's a bust, he was drafted 2 overall. I think.
Yeah.
Justin Fields was 11, maybe somewhere
10 or
around there.
11. I can't remember.
Yeah. So I get it. I get it for both. I just think that I think. Well, I mean, the Steelers got Justin Fields. The Broncos ended up getting Zach Wilson, and then they drafted a quarterback. So that really doesn't say a lot of confidence into that person. Justin Fields was the second person brought in after Russell Wilson signing in hopes that maybe perhaps he can learn something and be the future.
Yeah.
I think when you look at both of those options, that kind of can tell you what a team will think about a certain player or not. Dennis Polvac comes in with a $5 super chat saying Pirates win 2-1. What's up with the new show, Shannon?
Yeah, the last week on the Pump Your Brakes podcast, I mentioned for everybody to tune in to the preview last Thursday because Brian Anthony Davis, one of our, he's our podcast editor, and he took over the operations for Talk the Plank. It's a Pirates podcast channel. And we'd been talking for a while. He wanted me to be one of the podcasters. And some of it's going to be audio only. And we're going to have, starting out, one YouTube flagship show on Sunday nights. And we're putting a really good team together. That's going to start up here in the next week or two. And next Sunday night, I think we'll have our first YouTube show. And we've got a lot of talent from all over, some radio personalities from Pittsburgh and band. He's going to be doing it, and me and Corey Eckenroth and different people from that a lot of y'all are familiar with, and we're real excited about it. It's what I want to have happen is I've been a Pirates fan since the 90s. And I've always loved baseball my whole life, played, and but I always liked certain players. I've always loved the Steelers. The only team I've ever loved in any sport my whole life is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I always liked certain players growing up. But once I got older, I started rooting for the Pirates because they were on TV all the time around here. And I like watching games. I always have loved to watch baseball. But the Pirates have been bad for a long time. And there's kind of a stigma around the Pirates, around ownership, not wanting to spend money, trading away their young stars, and the fan base is not there anymore. The fans, the Pirates fans, we want to see a winner, and we want the ownership to want a winner as much as we do. So, long story short, I want to bring a more positive look, like I do with the Steelers. I try to always look at the glass as half full. Now, I want to be honest. I always want to be honest with what I'm seeing and what I think, but I will always try to look at the positives and the bright side. And I think that's something that it's hard to find any information on the Pirates, whether it be audio or any podcast that is trying to talk about the future and the farm system and where the Pirates can go, because they've got the makings of a really good team for the next few years here. So everybody stay tuned to that, because there's going to be we're going to try to have something every day. We're going to do a preview show twice a week to preview the next upcoming series. And like I said, we're going to have the flagship show on YouTube on Sundays, and there's going to be a minor league report. There's going to be something to keep everybody abreast of what's going on within the Pirate system, and hope to have them the rest of this year could be something magical.
That's awesome, man. Look forward to it. I'm sure you'll be posting up the links to those shows on your Twitter /X. Can you tell everybody where they can, your X handle?
No, not yet. Like I said, because we're going to be. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do everything. I don't know if I'll be changing anything or kind of keep my Steeler stuff separated from my Pirate stuff. So, but that'll all be coming out here in the next few days.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Hope you took your blood pressure medicine on this next topic. Did you see what PFF came out with, a little top defensive lineman in the NFL?
I did see that. That's where they got TJ as a defensive lineman and number 5, if I remember.
Number 6.
That's even worse.
That's even worse. They got, and for those that haven't seen it, PFF put out a top defensive lineman in the NFL, and they have Myles Garrett, number 1, number 2, Micah Parsons, 3, Chris Jones, 4, Nick Bosa, 5, Dexter Lawrence, and 6, TJ Watt. I mean,
oh man,
what does he have to do? I mean, he was first in sacks. I think he was top 5 in tackles, forced fumbles. I think touchdowns for defensive linemen, interceptions for defensive linemen or linebackers, outside linebackers. I mean, what does he have to do? Does he need to like fly?
I think we talked earlier that there's a bias against the Steelers.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and we see it so much with TJ Watt. I mean, I think if TJ Watt had a star on his helmet, or even a Browns helmet on, I think that he would be talked about as one of the all-time greats right now from the media. But because he's a Steeler, and the Steelers have such a long line, he can't help it. We talked last week on Pump Your Brakes, tried to put together our all-time Steelers team, 11 offense, 11 defense. That was so hard. I mean, you think it would be easy. And some positions are easier than others. But it is hard to put that list together, because there's positions that they go 4 and 5 deep with guys that for most teams, most franchises would be the all-time great, unquestioned. But this Steelers team, TJ Watt is in a long line of great players, great edge guys. But guess what? When it comes to edge players, I had to put him on there. TJ Watt is, I don't like when they call the edge guy a defensive lineman. See, I was raised that you had the defensive lineman, and then you had your outside linebackers and inside linebackers. Well, now we call them edge guys. And there's where the blurry line comes in. Because now you can compare Myles Garrett to TJ Watt, but they're not the same type player. They really don't even play the same position, in my opinion. One's playing in a 4-3, one's in a 3-4. It's not the same responsibilities. TJ Watt's dropping into coverage. TJ Watt's, he's doing things that Garrett is not capable of doing. And Garrett can do things that Watt can't do, because Garrett's bigger. I mean, the man's a freak of nature. I mean, that's one of the most athletic defensive players you'll ever see in your life. Just watch the things he does in his workouts, and you know what I'm saying. But TJ Watt is all around the best defender walking the planet. There is nobody else close. So when you're calling an edge guy the same as a defensive end, I don't think that's fair to either player. But it drives me crazy. There's no list in the world that TJ Watt should be 6 on.
Yeah. Yeah, when it comes to defense, and they're speaking about TJ Watt in that list, he shouldn't even be number 2. That guy needs to be number 1
On any list. Yes.
on any list, even in running backs. I mean, just kidding on that last one, but seriously, who else can do what he has done? He's gone up, he's jumped up and intercepted Joe Burrow twice from the line of scrimmage. He's him and Alex Highsmith basically beat the Cleveland Browns
single-handedly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just I don't get the disrespect either. I know a lot of people say maybe it's possible that they're just trying to, feed the fuel to the fire, so to speak, when it comes to the Steeler fans, so that way it draws more attention to them and it gets their algorithm going. And I get that, I understand that, but at the same time, I think a lot of these other places, like for instance, they chose Myles Garrett as Player of the Year. I think they took a lot of what PFF had to say for that award, and I think that's wrong. I think that's remarkably wrong, especially for a company that is founded by a Bengal and that is in Ohio. And when you all of a sudden see all the favoritism to the 2 Ohio teams, I mean, just what do you expect? You know what I'm saying?
It's funny. Let's think about how much they love Myles Garrett. And like I said, everybody forgot about the helmet swinging incident and other things and blatant lying about what happened. We won't even go into all that. Mm-hmm. Okay, but we're not talking about character, even though TJ Watt, I think, is an outstanding human being, but we won't go into that. But here's the thing. If you remember in baseball, not getting back in baseball, but just real quick, when the Boston Red Sox had the curse and the Chicago Cubs had the curse and they hadn't won in over 100 years, and what did the media want? They wanted them 2 teams to win a World Series. That was all that, and then finally the Red Sox won, and then it was the Cubs, and we're focusing on the Cubs. And then they won, and now you don't hear much about them anymore. People ain't focused on them anymore. What are they focusing on now? Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, nobody talks about the Clippers, and they've sucked forever. But anyway, the Cleveland Browns is everybody, the NFL Network, you think that they were the local channel for the Cleveland Browns because they want the Cleveland to be relevant and want them to be good. And if you're even halfway decent in Cleveland, you're all over the place. You got commercials. You got, you know what I'm saying? Good Morning Football or whatever that show was on. They love the Brownies to death. I think it's great that people want to root for the underdog, but don't punish TJ Watt because he's on the greatest franchise in NFL history. He's just a great player, the best player right now in the world, but he happens to be on the greatest franchise ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is something to that. The success of the team, the success of his family. JJ Watt being his brother and being highly successful as well, probably doesn't do any or doesn't give any help to TJ Watt's efforts. But it shouldn't matter. It should just be on performance alone. And when you look at performance alone and you look at what he was able to do, not what he was almost able to do, it's obvious, So I don't get it. Do you have any final words for everybody? That's the last topic of the day. You got any final words for everyone?
No, I'm just really excited for Wednesday. I'm excited that we're going to start getting more content and more conversation for all of us. It's everybody stuck with us through this dead period, and we've tried to come up with interesting content, but it's not easy for anybody, and we appreciate everybody that's been faithful. And I think that the long, dry period in the desert with nothing to drink is about over, and we're gonna all be able to enjoy plenty of refreshments here in the next few weeks. So I'm excited and look forward to the shows for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, me too. It's finally football time, guys. It's just in a couple of days. We're gonna get some news. We're gonna actually see the players in action, so to speak. It's gonna be football in shorts for a couple of days, maybe a week or so, and then the pads come on, and then it starts to really get in gear. The first preseason game is just around the corner, and we'll be able to see our team play. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Please hit that like and subscribe button, ring that notification bell if you haven't done so. Shannon, take us out, my man.